from the source of our soul to all of our being, and may the sparks of your holy servants, through which you revealed your wisdom to the world, shine. May their merit, the merit of their fathers, and the merit of their Torah and holiness support us so we shall not stumble through our study, and by their merit enlighten our eyes in our learning, as it is stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel, open my eyes, so I will see wonders from your Torah, because from his mouth God, YIRAH, gives wisdom and understanding. May the utterances of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, my Redeemer. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, we are in chapter 30, how Zerahpin emanated from Abba and Ima. The synopsis states, Rabbi Shimon recalls that the Baraisa says about the destruction of the first worlds and about how Atika Kadisha's craftsmanship later established everything as male and female. Then, when Abba and Ima joined together and were incorporated within each other, the head of Zerahpin emerged, as explained. This is because the word da'as is a numerical value of the word galgalta. Galgalta means the skull. And so da'as in one way is viewed as the skull to Zerahpin. In regard to this, 115 states, we learned in our Brisa that the luminary scattered sparks and glitters to 320 sides. These 320 sides are explained as a few different things. First, 320 is the numerical value of the word na'ar, spelled nun ein resh. Na'ar means child in Hebrew. Furthermore, 320 is 32 times 10. And that these sparks are called the first worlds which died immediately. Afterwards, the craftsman Atika Kadisha went to do his craftsmanship. So the first emergence was the emergence of the sparks, and the second emergence was the emergence of the corrections. Which was said as male and female. And the sparks that were extinguished and died became in existence as it is now. These sparks that are being discussed refer to the kings of Edom that died without weapons, which was hinted at 2 lessons ago. A picture of which has been provided. They are the letters Shin, Tet, Nun, Ayin, Zain, Sadi, and Gimel. And these lower 7 form these partsufs of Zerahpin, Abba, Ima, Zerahpin, and Nukva. They are the sparks that were extinguished and died and came in existence now. For from the harsh candle a spark came out. The harsh candle is the hard spark. Because the hard spark is the withdrawing, and in some respect, is the collective essence of death. Death means descent. And so therefore the restriction is the culmination of all that which descended. A spark came out, which is the strong hammer that struck and produced sparks. Likute describes this process as a light that descends, which is the straight light. And as the straight light descended, it started off as a simple light, but as it descended, it began to differentiate itself, putting on garments as it were, and it turned into what is called the hard light. And this hard light struck this hard spark, and this is what caused the sparks to emerge at first. It was likened to the strike of a workman's hammer, because the type of force that it struck the hard spark with. that were extinguished in the first worlds. It is mingled with pure air. Pure air, the word air is the word or with an additional yud. The pure air is a symbol of that light within inside of what we call the tehiru. Tehiru has a numerical value of 232. This is 72, 63, 45, 52. These also have a numerical value of 232. This is Imkalel for the 231. The vacancy or space inside of the restriction is called the Tehiru. Tehiru, it comes from Tahor. It means pure, but it can also mean simple. In many places, the Tehiru is equated with this simple light. And the simple light is also the secret of this pure air. And they were sweetened by each other. That is to say, it is mingled with the pure air because the straight light descended into the restriction, into the Simsum, and took upon it with itself all of these different varying aspects until it struck the heart spark. These sparks emerge and immediately extinguish. When they're in the aspect called Shin, Tet, Nun, Ayin, Zain, Sadi, and Gimel, they become what is called Satan, Azza, Azazel, the two Mashiach who fell into the pits, and the Gimel, the camel serpent, because they emerge outside of the fullness and they were completely klipathic, completely of the aspect of Sita Achra. So now we explain the emergence of Zerah Pin from Abba and Ima, saying, when Abba united with Ima, so accordingly, as you guys can see, according with the sparks, Shin Tet Nun was explained as Arichain Pin, and it was also explained and made known how this is alluded to the beard. Abba and Ima are the Netzach and Hod of Atik, and now it's discussing the secret of Zerah Pin when they conjoin together because Netzach and Hod gather together in the sphere of Yisod. This was identified in the previous lesson as Hadar. Hadar, the tree, was identified as Zerah Pin, which gave a direct equation with Yisod. It was explained that there was gold and water, which are right and left, and it was male and female. So when Abba united with Ima, namely male with female, the pure air, the secret of Chasadim, coming from the spirit hidden within Atik Yomen. So when these sparks emerged, the spirit is the secret of Ruach, is the secret of the lower seven sefirot of Atik Yomen. And this spirit concealed refers to the sockets that remained above in the hard spark. So when the sparks emerged, and the way we should understand these sparks is that the hard spark, which is the 231 gates, are all 22 letters intercommingling with each other. That is to say, they create spectrum. This is the sod of Aleph with every letter with Aleph. But we should understand this as the principle of air with every principle and every other principle with the principle of air. This totality of intermingling in this hard spark creates the spectrum of potentiality. This is a prerequisite ingredient for creation, that the totality of possibility must first exist. If you can think of it in layman terms, we can imagine perhaps someone programming a video game or programming some type of digitized game. Nothing can happen inside of the program that the programmer has not programmed to occur. That is to say, in order for the program to function, that means if I want to make it so that a person cannot walk through a wall, I must program a barrier in the wall. If I wish for the character to move, I must program movement. If I wish the character to have a certain look, I must program that look. If I wish for the character to have audio, I must program audio. And so the general idea behind this process of creation is that in order for creation to exist, the program for it must exist first. And the hard spark represents the totality of potentiality, because it's not just 231 gates. God forbid we diminish these secrets. 231 is the total combination numbers of the 22 letters, Aleph with every letter with Aleph. It's the first stage of exponential growth. The reason why it's 231 is because Aleph does not incur upon itself. Beit does not incur upon itself. It's Aleph with every letter and every letter with Aleph. It's very specific. But this creates every possibility of a two-letter combination. This is very important because we see evidence that these 22 letters are, in fact, precisely what was at the restriction. We see this in example, the 22 pairs of chromosomes. The 23rd is an X and Y genetic factor. We're talking about the 22 pairs of primary chromosomes. The same thing occurs when looking at the mitochondrial tRNA, which there are 22 pairs there as well. It's not 23, it's not 24, it's not 27, it's not 28. It's 22 specifically. This is very important because at this level, these sages are not talking about philosophical concepts. God forbid they be talking about philosophical concepts where the Zohar says that philosophy is nothingness. They conceive neither the above or the below, and they can take nothing as a witness to God, meaning literally nothing, meaning what their argument for God is the nothing unmanifested God. But because nothing can actually cleave to the unmanifested, even that which they perceive becomes worthless. That's why the verse continues that they are worthless and less than nothing. So we must not conceive the idea that any of this stuff is philosophical. You don't make it to the end of the Zohar, and this is what it's talking about, for any of these divine secrets to be dismissed or simply reduced to wheat, which the beginning of Sefer Desnuta talks about a man who lived on top of a mountain and ate wheat. And when he came into the city, he was given bread, and he said, "What is this?" And he said, "It's wheat." And later on, he was given pastries, and he said, "What is this?" And he said, "It's wheat." And later on, he was given delicacies of the king, and he said, "What is this?" And he said, "It's wheat mixed with honey and oil." And he said, "Behold, I have the essence of all of these things because I eat wheat." And because of this mentality, he knew nothing. And this is a very important understanding. That means that what this teaches us is that you should never trivialize or generalize the secrets of the king, that they are delicacies and they should be appropriated and scrutinized. The Torah of Mashiach document 100% shows the incredible insights behind the scrutinization of what many reduce to wheat as generalizations. There is no generalities going on at those levels. So it says, coming from the spirit hidden within Atik Yomen, was concealed within Abba and included the spark coming from the hard candle within the belly of Ima. Because Ima at this level is referred to as the Bina of the Atik. The Bina of the Atik is the hard spark. Ain is Keter, the Simsum is Chochmah, and the hard spark is Bina. And it's called the belly of Ima because the lower seven spheros have to deal with the lower bottom portion of the torso. And the belly even more particular because Abba and Ima represent the Netzach and Hod of the Atik, as shown in the sparks. And Yisod represents the reproductive organ. And so Netzach, Hod, Yisod represents the belly region. And so thus this cryptic language is being used. Many who have studied the Lunianic Kabbalah have fallen drastically because they've interpreted the hard spark is at the lower portion of Ima. Or even sometimes they say the hard spark is the backside of Ima. But without actually understanding the sod of the matter in relation to the Atik, they fell into great error. So, it is the judgment of Chochmah of the left of Ima. When the two joined and were incorporated within each other, that is to say, when Netzach and Hod joined together, or what we say is Chochmah and Bina, Chochmah of Ima within the Chasadim of Abba and vice versa, a strong skull. Now I said to you that the word Da'as has a numerical value of the word Galgalta. This is very important because Galgalta means skull. Da'as is spelt Dalit Ayin Tav. Ayin Tav is a numerical value of 470. This refers to 10 times Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, that's 260, and 10 times Ehyeh, that's 210. 260 and 210 equal 470, which is a numerical value of Ayin Tav, of Da'as. This has been explained in various videos and is only fully expounded in the Book of Dragons. It's a very subtle matter, but they meet in da'as, and these called the chasadim gevuros. So what they're talking about is how the chasadim and gevuros are intermingled with each other. There's chasadim and gevuros on the side of Abba, and there's chasadim and gevuros on the side of Ima. Together, there are 4 sets. This is the secret of the letter Dalet of Da'as, which has a numerical value of 4, while Ayin Tav hints to the primary influences of the 10 Yud-Ke Vav-Ke and the 10 Ehiyeh emanating from Chokmah and Bina. Now, although I've said that this is the Netzach and Hod in relation to the Atik, from our perspective, it's Chokmah and Bina in relation to Zerainpin. So when we analyze Zerainpin's Chokmah and Bina is Abba and Ima. But when we and that's from the bottom up. But when we analyze it from the top down, Abba and Ima personify Netzach and Hod. This is a very important distinction. So, a hard, strong skull, that's Galgalta, that is Das. The head of Zerainpin emerged and expanded to the sides. That is to say, it another. Just like there are 3 heads together in the Atika Kadisha, which are Ein, Ein Sof, and Ein Sof Or, there are 3 in Zerainpin, because Da'as spreads into 3 primary heads, and those 3 primary heads are Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet, which we call patriarchs or fathers, and they, in truth, come from 3 heads, which we call Chokmah, Bina, and Da'as. But all of this comes from the unknowable head, the concealed head, and the skull, where the unknowable head represents Ein in its illimitable states, the concealed head, which is a Chokmot to all Chokmot, a wisdom to all wisdoms, a Nikud to all Nikudim, a point to all points, the restriction, the Simsum, and the third head, which we call the skull, or the heart spark. So just as Atik has these potentialities, Zerainpin has these potentialities. But the difference is that in Atik, all of them were in the aspect of the center, one atop of the other. We find this similarly in ancient depictions of the parts of a Rikainpin, where Keter, Chokmah, and Bina are on top of each other as opposed to spread out to the right, left, and center. However, in Zerainpin, it is split between right, left, and center. And this is because it's explained in various places how in Olam HaTohu, in the world of Tohu, the Sfirot are one atop of the other, as opposed to right, left, and center, as it is in the construct that we see it as, and in relation to Zerainpin. So it states, just like there are 3 heads together in Atika Kadisha, the unknown head, Keter, the concealed Chokmah, which was explained, and everything comes about through 3 heads, as I said. And so we find that this is the origin within Zerainpin. And when it began to differentiate the midot and attributes, the Gevuros was on one side, the Chesadim was on another side. The Gevuros would personify that which is left because it originated from that which was left. And the Chesadim would originate from that which is right and take the place of that which is right. And they would personify the 2 Sfirot, which take these names, Chesed and Gevurah. Now, there were 5 Chesadim and 5 Gevuros, as it was explained. And that's because there are 10 Sefirot, which is 10 times Yud-Ke Vav-Ke and Chokmah, and 10 Sfiros in Ima, or Bina, which is 10 times Ehiyeh. And these 10 Sefirot are divided amidst 5 Partsufs, where Keter personifies a Rikainpin, Chokmah is Abba, Bina is Ima, the lower 6 are Zerainpin, and Malchus is the Nukva. So 10 Sfiros are divided between 5 Partsufs. This is the root and the Shorosh of the matter between 5 Chesadim and 5 Gevuros. They then differentiate themselves within Zerainpin as they've gathered there. And Zerainpin, being the secret of Da'as, fills the house or directs the Chesadim and Gevuros, and thus becomes the head to the differentiations, where the differentiations are truly manifested in that aspect. And so therefore Zerainpin is called king, for king is over a people. The word people is Ayin Mem, that is to say 70. the same as the number of nations, because it fills the lower seven spheros, and Da'as rises above the lower seven spheros in the same likeness, from which was said Chokmah, Bina, and Da'as, which are Abba, Ima, and Son, Father, Mother, and Son, in which Zayin was identified as the sphere of Da'as, because in truth, Zayin personifies the sphere of Da'as before it descends and differentiates itself in the lower seven. This occurs in the second symptom, the second restriction, which was 7 in number, while the first one was in 10 in number. But that brings us to our conclusion. So contemplate and consider very carefully about this very supernal teaching of the construct of Zerampin and its relation with Das, and see how this relates to the skull. Consider very carefully how Abba and Ima, the Chasadim Gevuros, gather together and how they become differentiated in the lower seven spheros. This tells us that powers were manifested, or midot, attributes, were manifested that would define what we consider Chasadim, what we consider Gevuros, and why they would be divided, and why he is called king, meaning king of that which is below. So many blessings to you. As David HaMelech said, open my eyes that I may behold the wonders of your Torah. Amen, amen, everyone. Shalom and salah.